I wondered where actually survival mode originated. There might be two aspects, at least the two aspects I find right now at the moment. Survival mode might have originated definitely in the situation that we experience this Earth and this planet as huge in comparison to ourselves, as being really tiny and small. So of course, if something else is really big, it might be really dangerous, it might be really, hard to understand, to grasp, to deal with, and I'm very small and I get the idea, well, I need to survive this. Especially when it is kind of linked to the other idea that death is something I have to fear. That we humans die, and that this is something bad, and this is something, that needs to be avoided, kind of automatically puts us into survival mode. Because, death can come around on every corner. Huh? That actually might justify to be in constant survival mode. And of course justifies constant survival mode actions and habits. But when you go to the roots of that, the first aspect already has changed. It's not the planet that is huge and we are so small. Right now I would say, well, we are so huge, or so many, and the planet in comparison is really relatively small already. So that paradigm kind of changed 180 degrees. The second aspect is that the occurrence of death puts us in a survival mode, might have to do with how we see, how we approach death. And basically, if you think about it, we don't have a lot of experience with death because, well, that's there. And when you have been there, usually we don't come back. Yeah, we have some, borderline experiences with people that have been kind of dead and they came back, and you know all the stories about the tunnels and the lights and so on and so on. But there are controversies all around. People say this is just your brain, functioning a little bit and this and that, or it's whatever. There are many explanations for that. You can take them for granted or not. You can believe in that or not. What we don't have are direct experiences with death. There's nobody there tells you how it is, because I've been there, I came back, and I tell you. So if you don't have a direct experience with something, the only thing you can take is an imagination, a fantasy about it. How do I imagine that it will be? And how is my imagination fed? How do I get my fantasies? Well, by everything I so far heard about it. The things that I like, the things I don't like, the things I consciously heard and transform into my fantasies, or the things that I subconsciously heard or experienced and built them into my fantasies. And when you look at all the fantasies and the stories we have about death, they are not very exciting. They're not very positive. They're not very like, yeah, wow, you know what? I'm already getting closer, and then we see how it is, and I'm already excited, and it's kind of an adventure. Oh no, it's much more like, oh my God, I have to fear it, and we know it's not the death itself, it's also the process of dying. There might be some, pain involved, or it's very uncontrollable, at least that's how we experience it from a physical, level here. We have stories about, how we are cut away and how a disease takes us away. It's mostly stories where we are, fate is coming upon us with death or with survival. So we are victims in the eyes of death. And usually, we also have kind of testing, like in the classroom stories. How did you live? How did you behave? Did you, live according to the 10 commandments or not so much? And show me 10 people that 100% lived according to the 10 commandments. They of course go to hell. All the others, they will wait a little bit and see how the big judge will judge them, or they already failed. So there's a hard passage with hard tasks to get somewhere where a kind of fatherly figure tells you you made it or maybe not, or you didn't. To me, it's not a very appealing story. Yeah? To me, all the stories that we have created, from our human perspectives, yeah? We usually imagine something like humans can imagine it. That doesn't necessarily mean that this is how it is. Yeah? All these stories are not very inviting, they're not very exciting. At least for me, they create fear, they create insecurity. Yeah, I don't know what's going to happen, how it really will be. It definitely does not sound fun. It definitely doesn't sound somehow a good step in the process. It always sounds like the end, there it's over. It always sounds like I want to avoid it as much as possible. It might be a little better in some areas on this planet where you think, well, I lose my body and I die in this caste, and well, a second later I'm reborn in the next higher caste. Well, I already, when I heard this, said, well, why would I fear death as much as in Western Europe when I die and tomorrow I walk on in another better life and better caste? You see, that's already a story that makes death a little bit more appealing. You still leave somebody behind, it's still very sad for your relatives that stay behind, of course, but for the person who dies, there's a glimpse of hope. Yeah? It might be better in next life. So we see with that simple example, the stories we tell ourselves, and of course each other, about death, they do make a difference in how we approach death. And they do make, in the end, a big difference. Are we approaching death in a way that shades our whole life in being in survival mode? Are the stories finally creating survival mode for us? Or is there a chance that the stories we tell ourselves and each other about death create living mode? I once had this idea, why not seeing death as, graduation time? There's always, a weeping eye when you graduate, because somehow childhood is over, you're not a kid anymore, you're not in school anymore, you cannot do, what you want, being here and there irresponsible. Yeah? You have to grow up. But nobody would avoid graduation for that because you want to stay a child. You would say, yes, of course, childhood is over, but now life comes. Now everything comes why I did school, why I did my graduation. How do you know that it's not the same with death? How do we know that death is not our graduation from life? That all the experiences we collected in this life, yeah, everything we did, everything we didn't do, everything we decided, all the results that were the results of our decisions, the whole package, the sum of our experiences, this is what we bring to death. And this is how we come to the door, if you want it, and this way how. There we are. This is my graduation. This is who I am. This is who I became. And this is why I was even here. To get there. I'm in school to get to graduation. Yeah? Maybe I'm in life to get to death. That doesn't mean that I, take the shortcut. Yeah? I don't leave school in second grade. Yeah? But that means there is a very different meaning in life that includes death and doesn't always exclude death. And if you saw it like that, what would change right here and right now in your life? For me personally, the survival mode inducing fear of death changed when I started changing my views about death. And it changed into a living mode, because if I understand that death and what comes after, possibly, yeah? And even if this is only the story I tell myself about it, nothing comes after. What is the effect right here and right now? To me, the effect is immediately I'm much closer to living mode feelings, living mode habits than survival mode. I'm also much closer in the moment, I'm much closer to the people around me, because you know what? Trying to avoid something and also if it's the end or the imagined end of our life, is an aspect of survival mode. You know, it's something against. Yeah? Including is an aspect of living mode. And check for yourself, what would be the results, what would be the consequences for yourself in your life, right here, right now, to your relations, to how you live your life, how you deal with life, just by imagining death as we imagine it till today was a product of survival mode, and you imagine to changing it as an aspect of living mode. How would you change? How would your life change? How would your life with all the others change? How would our life on this globe change?